Gold prices were going down for a little bit, and that just popped them right back up again. And we don't see any end in sight here. We see it continuing to escalate. I want to make this clear. You
Yeah.
are not allowed to talk about peace. Not one person in the major media speaking about peace, only more war. So the more geopolitics escalate into wars, the higher gold prices are going to go. We can easily see gold well over $4,000 an ounce if this keeps going the way it does, and even higher. And if there were no cryptocurrencies, you'd see it almost double the
Oh, yeah.
price.
According to Bloomberg, the heightened geopolitical tensions and economic uncertainty have combined with robust buying from central banks and inflows to exchange-traded funds, pushing the precious metal almost 30% higher this year. Short-term price predictions for gold suggest an increase in its value and demand in the next years, at least until 2030, showing the price could gradually rise to around $7,000 an ounce. American trend forecaster Gerald Celente forecasts that intensifying global conflicts will drive gold prices higher. Celente suggests that without the presence of cryptocurrencies, gold's price could nearly double, potentially soaring well beyond $4,000 an ounce. He critiques Western leaders for prioritizing war over diplomacy and highlights Germany's rising defense spending despite its ongoing recession. Celente warns that if Brent crude spike above $100, it could trigger a global economic and market collapse. According to the J.P. Morgan, oil prices reflect a 7% probability of a worst-case scenario, in which the impact on supply goes beyond reduced Iranian exports. In such a case, the bank said, price surge would not be gradual but exponential, driven by panic reactions and wider regional contagion. Based on historical reference, Celente notes that Trump pressured the Fed to cut rates in 2019 after a market slump, and expects similar actions soon. As rates drop, Celente predicts the dollar will weaken and gold will rise. Gold prices slipped slightly on Tuesday, June 18, 2025, as traders turned their focus to the Federal Reserve's upcoming policy decision. But despite this minor pullback, experts believe gold could rally again soon as the Israel-Iran conflict continues and the U.S. economy shows signs that rate cuts may not be far off. While reflecting on his journey, Gerald Celente states that the 1970s Iran conflict made him a political atheist and sparked his gold investing journey. He turned $10,000 into nearly $750,000, launching his trend forecasting career. Before we dive into Gerald Celente's sharp insights from his latest interview, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss a moment when truth meets the markets. Let's get into it.
Gold's going up because the world is going down. And what's your favorite war? You like the Middle East war? Nah, the Ukraine war is terrific, you know? And again, we only write data. We only look at facts. So, for example, you look at what's going on in Europe. You got this guy,
Yeah.
Mertz, over there, the former BlackRock guy that's running the government, the chancellor of Germany. Germany's been in a recession now for 2 years, third largest economy in the world, largest in Europe, in recession. And what are they doing? Well, we're going to borrow $1 trillion to build up our defense, and we're going to build up our infrastructure. So, the tanks be gone. Again, all of Europe is building up their defense. And then you see what's going on in the Middle East with the Israel war and now the attack on Iran. And it keeps going back and forth, and escalating. Gold prices were going down for a little bit, and that just popped them right back up again. And we don't see any end in sight here. We see it continuing to escalate. I want to make this clear.
Yeah.
You are not allowed to talk about peace. Not one person in the major media speaking about peace, only more war. So the more geopolitics escalate into wars, the higher gold prices are going to go. And at the same time, should they continue to escalate, particularly in the Middle East, you can see, oh, look what happened to Brent crude. What was it like about, it's gone up about $15 a barrel since it hit its low in May. And you can see Brent crude going to above $100, $120 a barrel. And that'll crash the global economy and crash the equity markets. 2018, when Trump was president, The Dow in December 2018 was the worst since the Great Depression, 1931. And what happened? Trump forced Powell to lower interest rates. He did it in January 2019. And, there's a saying by the guy George Carlin, who's a great comedian. He said, it's one big club and you ain't in it. Let's put it together. The Fed is the same club. Who was the Treasury Secretary of the Biden? Oh, Janet Yellen? What was the job before that? Oh, she was the Fed head. So yeah, he's going to force her to lower interest rates. Will it happen this week? I don't know. But definitely it's going to happen. Definitely, I would bet on it. And here's the deal. The lower interest rates go, the deeper the dollar falls. The deeper the dollar falls,
There you go.
the higher gold prices go. This book, trend tracking. I say how I became a trend forecaster. You know what it was? The Iranian conflict started breaking out. And that's when I became a political atheist. As everybody was taught to hate Iran, they had no idea of the United States overthrow of the democratically elected government of Mossadegh in 1953. Brought to you by, and again, the only newspaper that reported the facts, and it only took to 2017 to bring out the data that they were hiding, how the United States, the CIA, brought to you by Kermit Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt's grandson, great-grandson, who was in Iran, and Winston Churchill, the MI6. They overthrew the government. You know why? Mossadegh had the nerve, the gall, to say that oil in Iran, it does not belong to Anglo-Iranian oil, better known today as BP, or a Standard Oil, better known today as ExxonMobil. It belongs to Iranian people. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. They overthrew the government, brought in that clown, arrogant boy, the Shah, brought the Savak, the secret police that made the SS look good. So when the revolution began, back in the late 70s, that's when I became a political atheist. And I said, as everybody's learning to hate and swallow the crap, I started buying gold. I went into the oil and gold futures market. I bet $5,000 gold. I think I bought my first buy. It was like $163 an ounce. And I played the futures markets. I put a $5,000 bet in gold and oil. I brought that $10,000 up to almost $750,000. And that's when I quit my job and became a trend forecaster. Jimmy
I
Carter,
love that. Yeah.
Jimmy Carter spends New Year's Eve with the Shah and his wife, both him and Rosalind. He comes back and he says the Shah is the island of stability in the Middle East. And as I said, we used to say in the Bronx, BS has its own sound. I said, are those things going to collapse? So again, they taught us to hate Iran then, and they're teaching us to hate Iran now. And people have no idea the facts. So I've been buying gold since then. So I'm very blessed to have that. But I'm very sad to see what's going on. And as you well know, I launched the movement to Occupy Peace well over a decade ago and have rallies. And if the billionaires gave $1 billion apiece, we'd have it tomorrow. But there's not a word about peace. Not a word. And it's only about more war.
Regarding rising geopolitical tensions, Gerald Celente explains that economic struggles often lead to war, as seen with Germany's recession and Israel's conflict. Despite warnings, the Hamas attack occurred amid political unrest. These crises drive demand for gold and precious metals as safe havens. Celente emphasizes that investing in gold is now a rational response to global instability. Gold reached a one-month high last week as the crisis between Israel and Iran worsened. The increased geopolitical tensions in the Middle East were expected to push gold prices closer to a new all-time high. Israel and Iran launched further attacks over the weekend, raising concerns that the intensifying confrontation could spark a larger regional conflict. Investors are preparing for crucial central bank meetings this week, with a special focus on the U.S. Federal Reserve. Furthermore, Celente criticizes Trump for presenting himself as a peace candidate while making hawkish statements. He likens Trump's campaign to a reality show and dismisses his war-ending promises as political theater. Let's get back to the interview.
One of my sayings is, when all else fails, they take you to war. And you have economies failing, like I said, in Germany, in a recession for 2 years. Third largest economy in Europe, in the world, largest one in Europe. Again, in tracking trends, we're political atheists. We don't take sides. So, for example, with the Israel war, we subscribe to Haaretz. We pay. I want to hear what they have to say. We also go to Jerusalem Post, Times of Israel, Ynet, and we go to Tehran Times, Press TV, IRNA, ISNA. Want to hear what the Iranians have to say. We go to Arab News. We go to Al Jazeera. Want to hear what the Arabs have to say. We go to Euro News. We go all over. We go all over the world. We say this is what they're saying. This is our analysis, and this is where we see it going. When I say when all else fails, they take you to war, only by the facts. Let's go back to 2023. There were 39 weeks of protests going on in Israel. Not my language, the language of the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog. Israel is in a civil war. His language. They were protesting Netanyahu's Judicial Reform Act that basically said, I know they're going to bring me up on trial, but I'm changing the judiciary. We're going to get rid of the courts and we'll be in charge. 39 weeks of protest. And then Hamas attacked. Again, we only put the facts in. 3 days later, it was reported that the United States and Egypt warned the Netanyahu government that Hamas was going to attack. And following up, week after week, month after month, all the information came out. They knew the attack was going to happen. As I said, when all else fails, they take you to war. And that's where we see this going, unfortunately. But again, it's going to be a big positive for gold and precious metals.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm a trend forecaster. I see things for what they are, not the way I want them to be. And gold, let's go back. Once upon a time, I showed you the photo. I was with with John Connolly. John Connolly was the governor of Texas that was sitting in front of JFK that took the bullet in the back. He wanted to meet me back in 1992 because in my book, Trend Tracking, far better than Megatrend magazine, I had forecast to be a new third party and someone like Ross Perot would be the guy. I have a photograph of me, him, and his wife, Nellie, in front of the book depository where Kennedy got shot and so did he. And it's their first time back since the assassination. Anyway, this is the John Connolly that was a Democratic president. As we're walking back into the Anatole Hotel, he said, I read your book. He said, it's a fine piece of work. He said, I know your heart's in the right place. He said, well, you don't have a clue what's going on. And neither do the American people. Because if they did, there'd be a revolution in it. This was the Democratic governor of Texas that became the Republican and was the Treasury Secretary under Richard Nixon that took us off the gold standard. We owned a trademark when Trump ran for president in 2016. Presidential reality show. That's all it is. Hey, listen, you vote for me. I'm going to end that Ukraine war in 24 hours, all right? And now that I'm president, I got elected, I'm going to end that war before I get into office, all right? And it's one thing after another. And you go back to the things that Trump sold himself as a peace candidate, and you look at his comments, what he said about the Houthis were going to annihilate you, and what he's going on with Iran. I mean, you listen to his comments from what he said before, what he says now. And in the Bronx, we used to say BS has its own sound.
The World Gold Council forecasts a steady 5% annual growth rate, potentially reaching around $6,800 per ounce by 2040. However, some predictions are more optimistic, suggesting prices could be much higher, potentially exceeding $27,000 per ounce. Given these escalating trends, do you see gold as a core part of your long-term strategy? Or do you think alternative assets like crypto offer better protection in today's volatile world? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. If you find this video informative, don't forget to support our channel and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the following video.